Joe Pullman here from craftworking.net, and in this video I'm going to go over some talking points about VMware and the licensing version of it. If you've talked to your significant other and you've decided to make the investment and did the research and are willing to spend the enormous amount of money that it costs to actually do a VMware and do it right and with all the features that it contains, this video is for you. Once you do your research, you're going to find out that VMware is the king of virtualization. Really no one else comes close. IBM is niche, Oracle is niche. VMware is by far the most popular and the most widely used virtualization platform out there. And it's when you're building a data center for education and teaching yourself VMware, it's well worth it. If you can become good at VMware, the job possibilities are wide open. There's a lot of development and virtualization around VMware, so the innovation is very, very hot and heavy and strong. So that brings me to talking about VMware. VMware's current release is 6.0. They made numerous changes. It's almost completely different software than previous versions of 5.5 and 5.0 and before. The main point being that it's now much more integrated into your infrastructure. It does require DNS to actually run. One of the considerations you're going to need to make when going to VMware is your DNS setup. I'll talk about DNS, how I did it a little later on in subsequent videos. But keep in mind that DNS is a must. The other point is it does rely heavily on Active Directory or LDAP for name services. Authentication and login. This is not really required, but you're going to want to have it. So think about deploying Active Directory. It's a lot more, it's easier to deal with than trying to deal with FreeRadius or something like that. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of quirks in 6.0 that we're not seeing in 5.5. So when you get VMware, when you talk to VMware and you are going to make the purchase, then they are going to require you to get at least a 1-year support contract. You're going to find out that the support contract is well worth it because things are quite different in 6.0, and the knowledge base that VMware has, in my experience, has not been able to really solve a lot of my problems. So I have opened up quite a few support cases with VMware, so I have been using my my support contract. But at least when you buy VMware, you're going to have at least a year. The support contract comes in 2 flavors. You either get 9 to 5 support 5 days a week, or for a premium above that, you can get 24/7 support. And actually, their support isn't bad. They're actually pretty good on fixing your problems because they're very, very knowledgeable on their product. Now, VMware can run on one host, and it works just fine. So I'm sure a lot of you will at least start out with one host. This is how I did it. And but it doesn't. You don't have the orchestration that VMware brings to the table. In other words, the moving of VMs, the disk management, the VM management. There's a plethora of features that VMware has when you start getting into the clustering and multiple hosts. But you can buy vSphere and put it on your host and run it just fine. You don't need the orchestration, which is called vCenter. vCenter is the magic that makes basically cloud computing and virtualization happen for real. This is where it will automatically determine where your VMs need to go, if you're running into memory problems or disk problems. It will make decisions on what to do with those virtual machines, including power them down if necessary. So in a multiple host environment, if you're going to buy more than one server and have more than one host, then you're going to need vCenter. vCenter will manage both hosts, how the networking works, how the VMs work, how the disks work, how everything works. It's much more easier to manage. The networking is all orchestrated. Most of this is automatic. You can set up your orchestration full manual all the way up to full auto and everywhere in between. But that is what makes VMware what it is actually in the orchestration. This goes back to fault tolerance and high availability, as I explained in a previous video, is that what will happen is if you have a host failure, VMware will automatically take those VMs that were on that host that failed and power them up and bring them online on the other host without you even touching it. So there's a lot of neat features in vCenter that is actually worth the money. However, that being said, VMware is expensive, in my opinion, because they're really effectively the only game in town. Closest one competitor would be Hyper-V, and it's a completely different animal as well. So I won't go into Hyper-V since I'm not too familiar with it. But in any case, when you talk to VMware, you will, if you look on their webpage and you can get a free trial. It's 180 days, I think, for that you can use and buy it. But if you choose not to buy it after 180 days, you're going to lose everything. It's just going to shut down. So I wouldn't put a trial version and put it in production, because it's going to come crashing to its knees after that evaluation license expires. But VMware, like I say, they're very expensive, and if they do license by physical processors, so if you buy a host or buy a server with 2 sockets on it and populate both sockets with processors, that's 2 licenses. And it doesn't matter how many cores you have. They don't license by core. They license by physical processor. And the other thing that they used to do but don't do anymore, they don't license by memory. So you can have a full 1.5 terabytes of memory in your host, and it's the same price as having 8 gigs. So there's no license for memory. So, but if you're running more than one host, if you're saying you're going to have 2 identical hosts, that's 4 processors, that's 4 licenses. And then you're going to want a vCenter, and vCenter is another license, but you just need 1 vCenter license. So in my personal experience, I looked around and I was going to do 1 host with 2 processors. Then I wanted high availability, so I had to get, now looking at 4 licenses, and plus vCenter. And so when you add all of this up, plus the licensing fee or the support contract fees, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. If you talk to VMware, they do have bundles. For my personal setup, I got a 6 processor vSphere license and a vCenter license, and it came out to just just over $20,000. So, but your mileage may vary. You need to talk. That's what I paid for mine. But you would need to talk to VMware and see what you can do with them and see what they'll give you. So the other thing with the vSphere and vCenter is that you will get they will throw in something called vRealize. This is the dashboard network manager, or the manager, the vCenter manager that will manage your virtual environment. It has dashboards, alarms, and snapshot, and basically it'll give a snapshot and any quick overview of what your network is, and then you can drill down and see what else is going on with your infrastructure. And the nice thing is it's got a temperature chart on it, so you open it up and the first thing you see is a temperature map of all your VMs and their health. And so within a few seconds you can see the health of your network, and if there's something wrong you'll know immediately that there is a problem. You just click on it and then you can drill down to get more information on those issues. So that's kind of a nice perk that they offer. Some of the other things that you can do, they've got VMware's got a huge product line of everything for virtualization. So they've got a virtual switch that's over and above your switch inside your vCenter or vSphere. So over and above VSS and VDS. I don't think it's worth it myself, as not for a small environment, but if you're in a huge environment, it might make sense. They've got a virtual SAN solution, which will orchestrate your storage infrastructure to where you can do SAN replication across local storage. That I've heard good and bad things about it. It is very expensive because it's licensed by host, by processor as well, and you're looking at for 2 SANs with, let's say, dual processors in it, you're looking at maybe $10,000 just for that. So it's just not realistic. There's other solutions out there that are a lot more, they're a lot cheaper to implement, even though those are even quite expensive, but not as expensive as vSAN. So, but anyway, if you do decide to go with VMware and actually buy the licenses and buy the software, for the money that I spent on it, I think it's well worth it. So that's all I have for this video, and I will continue on with more topics in the next video.